Kate, good morning.
Hello, Gordon. How are you?
I'm really, really well. How are you doing?
Yeah, very good, thank you.
Brilliant. Really, really nice to be able to chat to you. And I'm delighted to be able to take this opportunity to introduce Eximius to the school notices users and members and schools and parents and all that sort of stuff. It's an amazing service and one that I'm guessing has a real, I guess a real importance, certainly over the last couple of years. It's been quite an interesting couple of years for all of us. But I'd love just to get a bit of feel about how you set up Eximius, why you set it up, what were your goals for it when you launched it?
Okay. So Eximius, Gordon, is what we do is we provide very high quality live-in care to clients that want to stay living safely in their own homes, but fully supported, because for a variety of reasons, they can't necessarily look after themselves. And the reason I sort of came into it, I actually used to be in the food industry many, many years ago, and then moved into care in 2002 and had a company that was very much what's known as domiciliary care, so short calls, looking after people that way. But I always had a passion for live-in care, because I think live-in care allows you to build those relationships, really get to know your clients and what they need and what they want, and is a different level of care altogether. And so I was lucky enough back in 2015 to be able to sell my domiciliary care company. And I set up Eximius, and all we do is live-in care, because I do believe it's very different to domiciliary care. And if I'm absolutely honest, Gordon, the reason behind it is my mother has vascular dementia, and I wanted to have a company that really focused on the individual and the family that are often very involved in the whole sort of care setup of their family members. And I'm going to be a bit cheeky, Gordon. So I'm going to ask you what Eximius means.
That is a really good question. I'm going to think it's something to do with luxury or quality.
Right, so it's Latin for exceptional. So I was trying to be a bit clever, but obviously the reasoning behind it is the sort of clients that we care for come from that sort of level of education, background, etc.
Yeah.
And I believe that the service that we then provide sort of caters to their requirements and their needs.
Okay, well, that's brilliant. And actually, my thought this morning as I was driving into work was, we're all at that age. Well, I'm at that age now where I've got parents or in-laws who are not in need of live-in care, but they're getting there. And it's always a worry for us, the children, in inverted commas. So,
absolutely.
At what stage do people come to you, and what sort of support are they after?
So it varies, Gordon, and that's a good question, because actually people often come to us just a little bit too late.
Right.
And I won't say too late, but we often get people calling us in a crisis situation. So what a very typical situation, and you're right, it is people like you and I who have children maybe in their teens and elderly parents, and we're really stuck in the middle, trying to cater for both. And that's where we come in and can take some of that pressure. So often what happens is, people don't see their parents for a few months, and they go and visit and they realize actually that one or other of their parents has deteriorated quite badly.
Yep.
Whether it be from dementia or a physical situation or whatever it might be. And what happens there is the risk is that the person caring for their loved one who is deteriorating, they get exhausted, they get tired. It all becomes a very fractious, very difficult situation. And often what happens is one or other of them will have a fall or something will happen and you're in a crisis. So we actually often recommend that people talk to us when they start to see their first concerns. And often when people start to have domiciliary care, so short calls a couple of times a day, that's a good time to talk to us and say, look, it may be that we're looking at live-in care in the future. Can we pre-register with you? Can we learn more about you? Can we at least get to a situation that we know you're there should we need you?
Yeah, and that's great advice. And is there a sort of intermediary level where it's not full-time live-in, or it's visits, or is that not really possible?
I tend to think that once you start to have 3 or 4 calls a day, that's a good time to look at live-in. That's when live-in starts to become more cost effective, more advantageous, and just give you that comfort that person might need.
Yeah. Okay. And what would you say? There's a couple of companies out there that do this, and what would you say is Eximius's USP or point of difference?
Okay. So when people first start to look at live-in care, there are sort of different levels of care that you can get. So a lot of people might look at a company that is more of an introductory agency. So they would give you a carer and then you're on your own. You basically employ them yourselves. For myself, that was not what I wanted from my mother. I wanted a fully regulated company, a company that I knew took care of everything. And if there were any issues or problems, it was down to the company. So it comes down to a preference based on time and need and everything else. Yeah. So we are regulated by Care Quality Commission. We have an outstanding rating that we're really proud of, because only 5% of companies in the country are rated as outstanding. And what that means is all the carers work for us, and we call them companions as well, depending on what sort of work they'll be doing with our clients. They're all employed by us, so we're responsible if they should go off sick or if anything should happen. We pay all their tax, NI, etc. They are all fully checked through DBS, which is a police check, through references, fully trained, etc. So really, when you come to Eximius over a company that's non-regulated, you're looking for that peace of mind, and you are handing over really the reins of responsibility to us. Yeah. So if you've made that decision, and that's the sort of company you want, why Eximius? So we're not for everyone, Gordon. I would describe us as more of a sort of boutique-y small company. Yeah. We do cover the whole of the country, but we are very much involved, and we're very much a sort of personalized company. So we know all our clients, we know all our carers' companions. We do little things like I've just been ordering the Christmas hampers for our clients. It's the highlight of my year. And we do, Easter gifts and birthday gifts and things like that. We're very involved. We often find that it's the family members themselves that struggle more with the care than the actual person receiving it. Yeah. So we know all the family members, and that's the sort of service that we provide. Not everyone wants that, and that's fine. Then there are the big multinational companies, etc., who can cope with that. But I think those that come to us really appreciate the level of service they get from us.
I'm sort of sensing there's quite a personal touch to this, and I would think that if, as a son of a mum who's living on her own, you're putting someone into her house, and I'm assuming there's an emotional bond that starts forming and all that sort of stuff, and that's an interesting procedure for everybody, I guess.
Yeah, and it's a terrifying thing for people, Gordon. I always say to my clients, no one grows up thinking, oh, goody, I can have care when I'm older. It's not something people want, but often, if we get it right, once they have it, they realize it's something they've needed for quite a long time. Yeah. So while we care with people who have dementia, Parkinson's, MS, those sorts of conditions, we also have quite a few that just need companionship. Certainly during lockdown, we had, several clients who just weren't with us at that point, but just got incredibly lonely. Yeah. And so in the first when we came out of lockdown, God knows when it was the first time, sort of June, July last year, they called us and said, we want to live in care. If we go into lockdown again, we want to have someone with us who can help us and support us. Yeah. And then we go to the other sort of extreme. So we provide complex care. So we look after people with spinal injury, brain injury. And it tends to be people that have had, sadly, a life-changing accident or incident. Yeah. And I particularly like that sort of care. I find it very rewarding.
Yeah. Tell me a little bit. I was doing a bit of snooping around your website earlier. Yeah. Tell me a little bit about your clinical care branch you set up recently.
Yeah, so that is really where our clients with spine injury, brain injury, etc., they fall into that arena. Okay. And obviously that's a different level of care. We have a clinical nurse on our team, and she supports us with the sort of care that they might need. So we're looking more at sort of clinical procedures there. Right. So there tends to be a lot more in terms of hoisting our clients, or peg feeding, or certainly if they're spinal, support with bowels and et cetera, et cetera. So it's it's a more clinically led form of care.
Okay.
And we have a separate team that sort of focus on that.
Okay. And you said that you cover most parts of the UK. Are there any areas you don't cover, or are you?
No, I mean, we have a client up in Glossop. We have a client down in Plymouth. We have a client over in Ipswich, and we have a client over the other side of Wales. So really, pretty much the whole country.
Yeah. And are your carers based over there, or do you send them out there, or do they come from that part of the world, or is it a mix?
It really varies. We're much more focused, Gordon, on matching the carer to the client.
Yeah.
So, and that again, I think is where we're very different. A lot of companies say they do that, but by that, what they do is, here's the carer, we've matched them to you, off you go.
Yeah.
We go and meet with the client. We get to know their likes, their dislikes, their lives, the way they've lived, the way they want to live. And then we will say, okay, we think this is the right carer for you. And it might be that that carer lives in Glasgow.
Yeah.
But that's our issue. It's nothing to do with the client.
Yeah.
And so but if it's the right carer, it's the right carer. And on that note, we normally find that within 48 hours, we know whether it's going to work or not. And that's, if it doesn't work, that's our fault, and that's horrible for the client, and we would immediately change that carer. So you're never stuck with a carer that perhaps for whatever reason you just don't gel with.
Yeah. It's such a personal, it's so difficult to get it right, I guess. But the ability to get to change it if it's wrong, I think is obviously super important. What's lovely about your business is, I think the best businesses are ones that are set up out of personal experience, or a personal requirement for something, or a frustration that it wasn't available. That was School Notices was set up for that very reason, and Eximius seems to be the same.
Yeah.
And
it's a funny thing, Gordon. Sorry, we talk about, and it's an awful thing to say, but it's the guilty child.
Yeah.
You always feel you're not doing enough for your parents. You're not. I certainly feel that with my mother, but I know I've got the best provision in place for her. She's had her carer for 3 years through us. She's fantastic. She's with my mum all the time. So we're very big into consistency. A lot of companies will say 2 weeks on, 2 weeks off. We don't do that. My mother's carer is with her for 3 months at a time, and then she takes a break, and then she comes back. And that works really well.
Brilliant. Well, I think I'm in the crosshairs for your company soon. I think my mum's
going to be you, Gordon.
I hope she's not listening to this, but she's definitely going to need something. Well, maybe for me, actually, maybe for me as well. Who knows? Well, look, Kate, really, really love to talk to you. It's a great business, and we're delighted to be working with you. And something which we should all be looking a little bit deeper into, certainly when you're reaching our age.
Yeah, and certainly, Gordon, any of the people who are using School Notices, if they just want to call and have a chat, we may not be the right solution, but obviously being in care, one of the things we want to do is make sure you get the right solution. So we're also very happy to give people advice and help and support.
Well, that's great, because it's a bit of a grey area for a lot of people. I think
big grey area.
Where to start. Yeah. But look, Kate, I should let you get on with your busy day, and thank you so much for sparing the time. It's been lovely to talk to you.
Lovely.
And we'll speak later.
Thanks.
All right. Bye-bye.